was Woodrow Wilson. But there were good, solid Republicans who, when he came back from Paris, said, we're not signing that treaty. And the next set of presidents were ciphers. Roosevelt absorbed a great deal of power. The American people stepped in and passed an amendment that no president could serve for more than 2 terms. Again, limiting the power of the president. So yes, the concentration of power of the president is one, dangerous, and two, the lesson of history is that a very successful leader and dictator like Augustus grew more powerful over the years, not because he kept seeking power, but because the Senate shirked its responsibility and put it all over on him. So Congress passes up on its authority, its responsibility. The best instance of this is the refusal of us now to get declarations of war. The president, if you look at his powers in the Constitution, is very limited. He is commander-in-chief after Congress has declared war. And this sending of troops with a congressional authorization, yes, but not with the declaration of war, has gotten us into trouble in Korea, Vietnam, and now in Iraq. In Iraq, it was a perfectly clear opportunity. We were declaring war against Iraq the same way we declared it against Adolf Hitler. We weren't against the German people, we weren't against the Iraqi people, but we were going to take their leader. Have a declaration of war, do it that way. That's a very good instance of Congress shirking its responsibility. Yes? Just right there.
Yeah, is Henry Paulson Alexander Hamilton?
No.
Or has there ever been another Alexander Hamilton? Anyone with his brilliance and talent?
There's never been another George Washington. There's never been another Thomas Jefferson. They were unique. I know. I mean, our modern financiers and treasury secretaries and economists, they terrify me much more than nuclear weapons, because they clearly don't know what's happening. So Hamilton did, and he had the political ability and the integrity and the understanding of finance to solve this in a way that's much better than anything we're coming up with.
Speak as though this was an evolution that was, in its totality, was going to happen. But in terms of the Bill of Rights, as I recall, Washington was against the Bill of Rights, and Hamilton was no strong supporter of that anti-federalist opinion.
No. Then you totally misunderstood me. No, the whole thrust of my remarks was that what happened in America was unique. It was fragile. It wasn't the sweep of history. It was far more likely that the Declaration of Independence.
Principled men make bad decisions.
Can principled men make bad decisions? Yes.
That's what I would think that Washington perhaps did when it came to the Bill of Rights.
No, well, I mean, he did serve as president under it. These were men who said, let's debate it.
But he didn't totally accept it, and I ended a friendship with George Mason because he was opposed to it.
Yeah, but he served under the Constitution with a Bill of Rights. Same way that Elbridge Gerry wouldn't sign the Constitution because he was opposed to slavery. But then he put aside that and served as vice president. These were men of patriotism and civic virtue. And one of the first characteristics of a patriot is your willingness to subordinate your own interests and ideas to what is for the good of the community as decided by a majority vote. And when Washington in his farewell address tells you, 1, you will keep your liberty as long as you keep your union. 2, do not have partisan politics. And 3, avoid foreign entanglements. And 4, stay out of debt. Now, if we had followed those 4, we would not be in this situation. I could be lecturing to you on Shakespeare. Yeah.
sort of the fundamental cause that you discussed at the beginning of your presentation about our failure to think historically, both as a nation and our leaders. I guess my question would be a twofold one. First of all, what can we do to rectify that? But if we can't, what's to come of the United States?
What can we do to rectify it? Well, history can be taught. Thomas Jefferson believed it was the most important single subject for every citizen of a free country to study. You should be a lawyer, you should study medicine, you should study business, but all of us should study history because of these lessons. And they were particularly important for a republic, because we're educating citizens to be better both morally and politically. And that was done through the lessons of great individuals in history. So teach history. I believe, you will get mad at me, but I believe no country teaches such a negative view of its country's history to its young people than we do. I think we have a great history. I think we have a history which we have allowed more people to live in freedom than any other nation, and it ought to be taught as such in grand saga. Then, two, the media could actually do a very strong process of educating by really putting into historical context events that happened. The same way at this moment it could also do an important job by educating us economically. What does it mean to issue commercial paper? But the continual ignoral of the lessons of history, such as we have seen over recent years, it leads to disaster. I ask my students the question, how many of you think that one day, 1,000 years from now, somebody will be going through the ruins of Norman, Oklahoma, or Washington, D.C., the way they go through the ruins of Rome? Very few of them raise their hand. We think we will live forever. The lesson of history is that we won't. Archaeologists will go through Washington and New York, and they will find these golden arches. And they'll find them all over the world. And they'll ask the question, what was the cult of Ronald? And what sacrifices did they carry out in these huge dens? So we will pass away. But we will pass away much more rapidly if we believe that we are immune to the laws of history. Such as, once you're a superpower, you cannot step back from it. You have aroused too much hatred. Be very cautious about preemptive wars. 3, educate your citizens for freedom. Aristotle said that was the key to conservative democracy, was to educate the young for freedom. So if we ignore those, we will pass away much more rapidly. In fact, I think we're in much more danger of passing away as a great power than we were 8 years ago. When we talked about freedom not being a universal value, Russia in its long history has never known freedom. And Russia has now emerged as a major power. No solution to the Middle East can be found without Iran. History teaches us that. And yet we have allowed Iran to grow ever stronger. So I think the future is very dangerous for us if we continue to refuse to learn from history. But it's rooted in us now. We think we're so smart. We think our technology has made us so much smarter than anybody who ever lived in ancient times. Yes?
Yeah, so historically, our country has never faced like terrorists, or Washington and those guys never faced terrorist attacks. So, I mean, one can argue that there was nothing for George W. Bush to look back on and say, okay, well, I should do this or I shouldn't do this. Can you kind of comment on, you know, our country facing unprecedented issues and threats?
That's a superb question, and yes, I can. We did face a terrorist attack in the view of Abraham Lincoln.